There will always be someone who speaks without thinking, someone who misunderstands you, someone who judges you without knowing your story, someone who tries to provoke you, disturb your peace, or pull you into a reaction. And the question is not whether these people will appear in your life. They will. The real question is, who will you become when they do? Because anger often feels like something that happens to you. Someone says something, and suddenly you are angry. Someone disrespects you, and suddenly your peace disappears. Someone behaves in a way you do not like, and suddenly your entire mind becomes occupied by them. But look more closely. Between what another person does and what you experience inside yourself, there is a small space. And inside that space is your freedom. You do not need to become emotionless. You do not need to pretend that disrespect does not hurt. You do not need to tolerate everything or allow people to cross every boundary. This is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming so aware of yourself that another person's behavior no longer automatically decides the condition of your mind. Imagine someone throws a stone into a still lake. The stone creates waves, but the lake does not chase the stone. It does not become angry at the stone. It does not ask, "Why did you come here?" It simply receives what happened, creates its movement, and eventually returns to stillness. This is something we must learn. A difficult person may enter your day. A harsh word may enter your ears. A disappointing action may enter your experience. But you must learn not to carry that moment everywhere you go. Many people suffer twice. First, because of what happened. And second, because they continue replaying what happened inside their mind. The event lasts for a few seconds, but the mind repeats it for hours. Someone says one sentence. You replay it 10 times. Someone gives you a look. You create a story around it. Someone misunderstands you. You spend the entire evening trying to prove that you were right. And slowly, without realizing it, you have given another person control over a part of your day. This is where your practice begins. Not with controlling other people, with observing yourself. When anger rises, can you notice it before you become it? Can you feel the heat in your body without immediately turning it into words? Can you breathe before answering? Can you remain silent long enough to understand what is actually happening within you? Because the strongest person in the room is not always the loudest. Sometimes the strongest person is the one who has every reason to react and chooses awareness instead. That is the beginning of freedom. And perhaps today, you need to ask yourself a simple question. How much of my peace am I giving away to people who are not even thinking about me? Because when you stop handing your inner world to every person who enters your life, something changes. You become quieter, clearer, more stable. And you begin to understand that peace is not created by having perfect people around you. Peace is created by developing a mind that knows how to remain centered when imperfect people appear. That is the training. And it begins now. Anger often feels as though it is caused by another person. Someone speaks disrespectfully, ignores you, criticizes you, lies to you, or behaves in a way you cannot accept. And immediately something changes inside you. Your heart beats faster. Your body becomes tense, your thoughts become louder, and you feel that the other person has made you angry. But there is a deeper truth that can completely change the way you experience difficult people. Another person may create the situation, but your reaction is still your responsibility. This does not mean that what happened was acceptable. It does not mean you should tolerate disrespect or allow people to cross your boundaries. It simply means that you must recognize where your power begins. You cannot always control what someone says. You cannot control how they behave. You cannot control whether they understand you, respect you, appreciate you, or treat you fairly. But you can train yourself to decide what happens inside you after their behavior reaches you. Imagine someone insulting you. Their words leave their mouth in a few seconds. But if you continue thinking about those words for the next 3 hours, the person is no longer speaking. You are speaking to yourself. You are replaying the situation, creating arguments in your mind, imagining what you should have said, and becoming angry again and again. The original moment has already ended, yet you continue giving it life. This is why emotional strength begins with awareness. Before you react, pause. Notice your breath. Notice your body. Notice the thoughts appearing in your mind. You may feel anger rising, but you do not have to immediately become the anger. There is a difference between feeling an emotion and obeying it. Anger can appear without becoming your master. A disciplined person does not say, "I never feel angry." A disciplined person says, "I can feel anger without allowing anger to decide my actions." This small difference can transform your relationships, your decisions, and your peace. When someone tries to provoke you, they may expect an immediate response. They expect you to defend yourself, raise your voice, become emotional, or lose control. But when you pause, you interrupt that pattern. You create space between the event and your response. And within that space, you have a choice. You can ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will reacting make the situation better? Do I need to answer, or do I simply need to walk away? Am I protecting my dignity, or am I protecting my ego? These questions bring you back to yourself. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the clearest evidence that you are no longer controlled by the need to react. You will discover that many things that once disturbed you begin to lose their power. The rude comment becomes smaller. The criticism becomes easier to observe. The unnecessary argument becomes easier to avoid. You begin to understand that not every battle deserves your attention. Your peace becomes more valuable than proving that you are right. Your energy becomes more valuable than winning an argument. Your emotional stability becomes more valuable than receiving the last word. And this is where true inner strength begins. You stop asking, how can I make people behave differently? Instead, you begin asking, how can I remain centered regardless of how they behave? That question changes everything. Because when your peace depends on everyone around you behaving correctly, you will always be vulnerable. But when your peace comes from your own awareness, discipline, and understanding, people can still disappoint you without destroying your inner balance. You cannot control every person you meet. You cannot prevent every insult. You cannot avoid every difficult situation. But you can become the person who chooses the response. And once you understand that your reaction belongs to you, you stop giving other people the power to control your mind. One of the greatest sources of anger is the habit of taking everything personally. Someone speaks differently than you expected. Someone ignores your message. Someone criticizes your work. Someone does not appreciate your effort. Or someone behaves coldly toward you. And immediately, your mind creates a conclusion. They are doing this to me. But very often, what people do has far more to do with what is happening inside them than with who you are. People carry their own fears, insecurities, frustrations, disappointments, expectations, and unresolved emotions. Sometimes a person is rude because they are having a difficult day. Sometimes they criticize because they are insecure about themselves. Sometimes they reject you because they are afraid. Sometimes they become angry because they do not know how to communicate what they actually feel. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but understanding it can prevent you from carrying their emotions as your own. Think about how easily the mind creates stories. Someone walks past you without saying hello. Immediately, you think, they are ignoring me. But perhaps they did not see you. Perhaps they were distracted. Perhaps something difficult was happening in their mind. Perhaps they were simply lost in thought. The event was simple, but your interpretation created the emotional reaction. This is why awareness matters. The mind often fills gaps with assumptions, and assumptions can create unnecessary suffering. You see an action, then you create a meaning around that action, and finally, you react to the meaning as if it were absolute truth. The more you practice observing people without immediately judging their intentions, the calmer you become. Not everything is about you. Someone can disagree with you without hating you. Someone can criticize you without destroying your worth. Someone can leave your life without proving that you are not enough. Someone can misunderstand you without making their misunderstanding the truth about you. And someone can dislike you without requiring you to dislike yourself. This is a powerful form of emotional freedom. When you stop taking everything personally, you stop needing everyone to approve of you. You no longer feel compelled to explain every decision. You no longer feel the need to correct every misunderstanding. You begin to understand that your character does not need to be defended against every opinion. There is a quiet strength in being able to say, they see me differently, and that is okay. Of course, this does not mean ignoring useful criticism. If someone points out a genuine mistake, you can listen. If your behavior hurts someone, you can take responsibility. Emotional strength is not refusing feedback. It is having enough stability to separate useful truth from unnecessary negativity. Ask yourself when someone says something that bothers you, is there something here I can learn? If there is, learn. If there is not, let it pass. You do not need to collect every opinion that people give you. Imagine walking through a crowded street while people speak around you. You hear hundreds of voices, but you do not stop to respond to every sentence. You understand that not every sound requires your attention. Your mind should work the same way. Not every comment deserves a reaction. Not every judgment deserves an explanation. Not every misunderstanding deserves a correction. And not every person deserves access to your emotional energy. The moment you understand this, your life becomes lighter. You begin to protect your attention. You become less interested in proving yourself and more interested in improving yourself. You stop measuring your value through other people's reactions and start measuring it through the person you are becoming. People will misunderstand you. People will judge you. People will sometimes project their own problems onto you. Let them. You do not have to carry what belongs to them. Their anger is theirs. Their insecurity is theirs. Their opinion is theirs. Your response is yours. And when you learn to separate these things, you become much harder to disturb, because you no longer automatically accept every emotion, opinion, or judgment that someone places in front of you. The moment between what happens and how you respond is one of the most powerful moments in your entire life. Most people move through this moment without noticing it. Someone says something offensive, and they answer immediately. Someone criticizes them, and they defend themselves immediately. Someone behaves disrespectfully, and they react before they have even understood what they are feeling. The reaction becomes automatic, and later they often regret the words they spoke, the decision they made, or the way they allowed another person to disturb their peace. But there is another way. You can create space. That space may only last for a few seconds, but those seconds can completely change the outcome. When anger appears, your first responsibility is not to defeat the other person. It is to become aware of yourself. Feel the tension in your body. Notice your breathing. Notice how quickly your thoughts begin moving. Notice the desire to respond, defend, attack, or prove yourself right. You do not need to suppress these feelings. You simply need to observe them before allowing them to control your behavior. This is where emotional discipline begins. Imagine someone says something that normally would make you angry. Your mind immediately prepares an answer. You know exactly what you want to say. You want to make them feel what you are feeling, but instead of speaking immediately, you take one slow breath, then another. You allow the first wave of emotion to pass. Suddenly, you see the situation differently. Perhaps the words were not worth answering. Perhaps the person was trying to provoke you. Perhaps you misunderstood their intention. Perhaps you need to establish a boundary, but you can do it calmly. The situation has not changed, but your relationship with the situation has changed. That is the power of the pause. A pause does not make you weak. It makes your response intentional. There is a great difference between reacting and responding. Reaction happens automatically. Response happens consciously. Reaction says, "You made me angry, so I must act from anger." Response says, "I feel anger, but I will decide what deserves my action." This distinction can protect you from countless unnecessary conflicts. Think about how many arguments become worse because two people are responding to each other's reactions instead of the original problem. One person raises their voice. The other raises theirs. One becomes defensive. The other becomes more aggressive. Soon, nobody is listening anymore. Both are simply trying to win. But when one person chooses to pause, the cycle can end. You do not have to match someone's emotional state. If they are loud, you do not have to become loud. If they are angry, you do not have to become angry. If they are impatient, you do not have to become impatient. Their emotional state does not have to become your emotional state. This is a form of inner independence. The more you practice pausing, the stronger this ability becomes. At first, you may remember to pause only after you have already reacted. That is still progress. Later, you will notice the emotion while it is rising. Eventually, you may feel the anger beginning and choose your response before the words leave your mouth. That is training. You are not trying to become a person who never feels emotion. You are becoming a person who is no longer controlled by every emotion that appears. Sometimes the best response is a calm sentence. Sometimes it is a clear boundary. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is walking away. And sometimes it is realizing that the conversation does not deserve another minute of your attention. The goal is not to control every situation. The goal is to remain connected to yourself while the situation unfolds. Because when you create space before you respond, you take your power back. You stop allowing a few seconds of another person's behavior to determine the next several hours of your life. You become the observer before becoming the actor. And in that small space between the stimulus and your response, you discover something very important. You were never powerless over your reaction. You simply needed to become conscious of the choice that was already there. One of the deepest reasons people become angry is because they want other people to behave according to their expectations. We want people to respect us, understand us, listen to us, appreciate us, apologize when they hurt us, and behave in ways that make sense to us. When they do not, we feel frustrated. But the more you try to control another person's behavior, the more you give that person power over your peace. You cannot control another person's thoughts. You cannot control their choices. You cannot control their attitude. You cannot control whether they understand you. You cannot control whether they change. And you cannot force someone to become the person you want them to be. This is not a reason to accept everything. It is a reason to understand where your responsibility ends. You are responsible for your actions, your words, your boundaries, and your response. Other people are responsible for theirs. When you constantly try to manage what belongs to someone else, you create an internal struggle that can never truly be won. Think about how exhausting it is to constantly think, why are they like this? Why can't they understand me? Why won't they change? Why do they keep doing this? The mind becomes trapped in questions that have no immediate answer. You spend your energy trying to solve another person's personality while neglecting your own peace. Acceptance does not mean approval. You can accept that someone is difficult without approving of their behavior. You can accept that someone may never understand you without continuing to explain yourself. You can accept that a relationship has changed without spending your life trying to force it back into what it once was. This kind of acceptance is not weakness. It is clarity. When you stop trying to control people, you begin to see them more clearly. You stop asking them to behave differently so that you can feel peaceful. Instead, you learn to make decisions based on who they actually are. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, you can create distance. If someone constantly creates conflict, you can reduce your interaction with them. If someone refuses to listen, you do not have to keep explaining. If someone chooses negativity, you do not have to join them. Your power is not in changing them. Your power is in deciding how much access they have to your life. This is an important distinction. Sometimes we think boundaries mean controlling another person. But a boundary is not, you must stop behaving this way. A boundary is, if you continue behaving this way, I will choose what I do next. That shift gives you freedom. You stop fighting reality. You stop trying to force the world to match your expectations. You begin working with reality as it is. And when reality does not match your wishes, you adjust yourself without abandoning your values. This is where peace begins to grow. You realize that not everyone will understand your silence. Not everyone will appreciate your kindness. Not everyone will respect your boundaries. Not everyone will recognize your effort. And that is okay. Your task is not to make everyone understand you. Your task is to understand yourself. Your task is not to make everyone like you. Your task is to live according to principles that allow you to respect yourself. Your task is not to control every person around you. Your task is to become so grounded within yourself that other people's choices no longer dictate your emotional state. When you release the need to control others, you also release a tremendous amount of tension. You stop monitoring every word. You stop waiting for apologies. You stop expecting people to finally become different. You observe, you decide, you act. And then you let go. This does not mean you become indifferent. You can still care deeply. You can still love people. You can still hope they grow. But you no longer make your peace dependent on whether they do. That is true freedom. Because the moment you accept that other people are responsible for their own path, you can finally return your attention to the only person you can truly train, guide, and transform: yourself. Real strength is not the ability to control everyone around you. It is the ability to remain centered when the world around you becomes difficult. Anyone can feel peaceful when everything is going according to plan. Anyone can remain calm when people are respectful, circumstances are comfortable, and nothing challenges their expectations. The real practice begins when someone provokes you, disappoints you, misunderstands you, or behaves in a way that touches your deepest emotions. This is where you discover whether your peace depends on the outside world or comes from within. An unshakable inner center does not mean that you never feel anger, sadness, disappointment, or frustration. You are human and emotions will arise. The goal is not to destroy your emotions. The goal is to stop allowing every emotion to become your identity and dictate your actions. You can feel anger without becoming an angry person. You can feel disappointment without allowing disappointment to control your day. You can feel hurt without turning your pain into revenge. You can experience conflict without becoming conflict. This is emotional maturity. When your inner center is strong, someone can disagree with you and you remain grounded. Someone can criticize you and you listen without immediately becoming defensive. Someone can walk away from you and you do not immediately question your worth. Someone can try to provoke you, and instead of giving them the reaction they are looking for, you observe yourself and choose what is appropriate. You begin to understand that peace is not something another person gives you. Peace is something you practice. A very difficult interaction becomes an opportunity to strengthen that practice. Instead of thinking, "Why is this person disturbing me?" you begin asking, "Why am I allowing this moment to take control of my mind?" That question brings responsibility back to you. You may not control the event, but you can control your attention. You may not control another person's words, but you can control whether you carry those words for the rest of the day. You may not control someone's behavior, but you can control whether you remain close to it. This is how inner strength develops. It develops through repetition. Every time you choose patience instead of an impulsive reaction, you strengthen patience. Every time you walk away from an unnecessary argument, you strengthen self-control. Every time you forgive without returning to the same harmful situation, you strengthen wisdom. Every time you choose silence when speaking would only create more conflict, you strengthen discipline. Small choices become character. Eventually, you become less reactive, not because the world has become kinder, but because you have become more stable. And stability does not mean becoming cold. You can have a strong heart and a calm mind. You can care about people without becoming dependent on their approval. You can love without losing yourself. You can establish boundaries without hatred. You can walk away without revenge. You can remain kind without allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. This balance is important. Some people think emotional strength means becoming completely detached from everyone. But true strength does not require you to stop caring. It requires you to care without losing your center. Think of a tree standing through changing weather. The wind moves its branches, but its roots remain grounded. The tree does not fight the wind. It does not need the wind to disappear before it can stand. It bends when necessary and returns to its center. You can learn to live in the same way. Life will bring criticism. Life will bring disappointment. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Relationships will change. Some people will leave. Some will return. Some will appreciate you. Others will not. Through all of this, your inner center must remain yours. This is why the deepest form of power is quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to win every argument. It does not need everyone to agree. It simply knows where it stands. When you build this kind of inner stability, you become difficult to disturb because you no longer demand that the outside world be peaceful before you allow yourself to experience peace. You carry your calm with you. And when you carry your calm with you, you stop searching for peace in other people's behavior and begin discovering that the strongest place you can stand is within yourself.